Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast, a show to share stories, insights, and experiences from some of the greatest coaches in the world. I'm Michael Kurkowski, so grateful for you joining me today. And if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to support the show. All right, let's dive in. Here we go.
All right, let's have some fun. Vince, really great to meet you. Thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Always fun to have another East Coast guy coming in here. So I'm excited. So shout out to Eric Malzone. He got a chance to connect us and got a chance to look over your work and love the message that you have of not just helping the fitness culture and individuals, but really helping gym owners as well excel. You know, I think we're all trying to bring each other up, and I think you're doing a great job at it. So I'm really excited to hear more about your journey of the things that you've done over a 20-year career and just have a good conversation today.
Awesome. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, no doubt. So to kind of get into a little bit of the origins, what was your first inspiration and really coming into health and fitness? I know you're an athlete for a bit and then eventually got into coaching. What was kind of your introduction into this world of health and fitness?
So it dates far back to I have two kind of origin stories. And the first one I didn't even realize till I started getting interviewed on podcasts. And I remembered actually this happened. And it was when I was in sixth grade. I was 160 pounds. And the weight limit to be on the eighth grade football team was 140 pounds.
Mhm.
So I had to lose. My first experience in fitness was losing 20 pounds to be able to play on the eighth grade team as a sixth grader.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like, so I started like, I didn't know what to do at this point. So I was like, my mom was like doing Weight Watchers at the time. She was like, here, take these diet pills and then go run around the block. And
Oh shit. Okay.
it was like really weird, random, but I ended up losing 20 pounds. I did it and I was able to play and I just got my ass kicked like so bad because like sixth grader and eighth grader are a big difference. And even
Oh
though
yeah.
I was big, but I wasn't strong. I wasn't fast. I was just like, and I had never played before. So I just got my butt kicked all over the place. But that was like my first experience. And then soon after that, I started, lifting weights and going into, I remember like my buddy's mom in their big Lincoln Town car picking us up and driving us to the local bodybuilding gym.
Mhm.
And actually, one of the coolest things was, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but one of the guys that was a client at this gym was Jimmy Superfly Snuka. So
Oh
who's
yeah. I know. I
yeah,
remember
so,
oh,
so we
blasting the
would go
past
and
name.
work out
Yeah.
and like we'd be doing the leg press and like Snuka would be like right next to us and it was like the coolest thing ever. So it's like, things like that, and then you get the bug. And I played football. I ended up playing football in college. I played for Temple University and played 4 years there and I was majoring in business and I was like I really didn't like it. I was a terrible student. I was not a good student at all. And I didn't like the classes I was taking because they were like, I love business, but they were like the macroeconomics classes and things like that. And I just didn't get it, honestly. And I was like, I really love fitness and I'm going to do, I'm going to get into the fitness industry. And the second time, this is when I really got into it. This is my first or second origin story. But when I played, I was about 300 pounds. And so I was like, when I was done playing, I was like, dude, I need to lose the weight.
Mm.
I was like sweating walking to class. It was embarrassing. Like I would like walk to class and like be sweating through my shirts. And I was like, I shouldn't be, this heavy. I don't need to be this heavy for my whole life. So
Right.
that's when I started reading like bodybuilding magazines and like the men's health and fitness. And then that led me to a certification that I took called the ISSA.
Mhm.
You remember it? I think,
Yep.
yeah, it's like Dr. Fred Hatfield was the guy that,
Yeah, it was always ISSA, NASM, and I think ACSM were the normal ones. And then NSCA was like if you wanted to go like the strength and conditioning route. Those are always like the four horsemen.
got it. Yeah. And I think ISSA I took online. So I just like that summer, as I'm trying to lose all this weight, I kind of got really, really into it. And then I told my father, who was a successful financial advisor, that I'm going to become a personal trainer. And he patted me on the head and said, good luck with that, son. And
Right.
I moved, and I
Not
moved
not
to,
patronizing at all.
yeah, yeah, right. But he was good. He's like, wanted me to make my own mistakes and
Sure. Yeah.
stuff like that. But and I moved to California from Philadelphia and got an internship at a gym, started interning at this gym and ended up earning a job and worked there for 5 years, training professional athletes, training college athletes, high school kids, adults, like all kinds of different people that I was working with. So I got my first kind of experience in the fitness industry in that at that gym in San Diego.
Mhm.
And I'm obviously from New Jersey originally, so I met my wife, Vanessa, of 18, 17 or 18 years. Sorry, honey. 17 or 18, I'm not sure. Um, and we met at that gym, and they lost two of their best staff members on the same day when we decided to move to New Jersey, uh,
Mhm.
from California and start our own business together. So this was like, now like 2000, we moved to New Jersey in 2007, opened the gym in 2008, and still the gym still runs today.
That's
So
awesome.
that's kind of the story that led led us to, you know, a lot of, tails and turns in that one, but that's the story
Sure.
that led us
Yeah.
into the fitness
It's
industry.
it's so interesting that there was a weight limit for football when you were early in there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I mean, it's like I could see like losing 20 pounds, like there's definitely a strength difference right off the bat. So I'm sure you felt it right off the bat, right in there.
Oh yeah. I remember going and I got beat up so bad I begged my parents to quit. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And
Mhm.
they would not allow me to quit and then ended up getting a full scholarship, to play football in college. So kind of
Yeah.
glad they didn't let me quit.
Yeah. So I mean, I mean, you were heavy at a point, you said about 300 pounds or so. So I mean, playing on the line, it was almost, was it like, I mean, if you're a lineman, right, it's like the bigger the better on that. Was kind of like that. Was that the mentality of in football of like, doesn't matter what your weight is, we just want you to be as big as possible?
To an extent, obviously you have to be able to move now,
Right.
especially. But back then, yeah, like we ran an offense where you had to pull a lot, and that you had to be fast and you had to be able to move, in that sense. So yes, you needed to be big because the guys going against you were, that same weight, and they were probably even faster than you. So you couldn't be this like 400-pound block, but around anywhere from 290 to 330 pounds and be able to move as fast as you can for 5 yards. And then after that, it didn't matter.
Yeah, no. What was it about kind of the fitness industry and personal training that felt like it called to you? Was it more the personal feeling that you got from going into the weight room and seeing personal success, or was it more like wanting to help people and thought this was an avenue that already had some knowledge on, and that's what kind of steered you in that direction?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it started with a passion. I mean, for football, I always just enjoyed the weight room. I always enjoyed training. I always said like I enjoyed training for football more than I actually enjoyed playing football. And so I think that was first, and I had been doing it since sixth grade, right? I've been training myself and lifting weights and doing all that stuff for a long time. So I think part one was passion. But the second part was I didn't really get the experience of helping others until I got my first job. And when I got my first job, and I remember my first client, it was this little chubby girl who wasn't an athlete or anything like that. And I had her for 30 minutes. And I still remember, I'm not going to use her name on the podcast, but I still remember her. And I remember like the impact that I had on this girl. And the mom would like, because she was having trouble with confidence and having trouble with this and that. And I just like totally like helped her become a different person, like
Yeah.
very quickly. And the mom is like emailing me. She was like, "You have no idea what you've done for my daughter. Like, you have no idea." And I remember going to her soccer games and watching her play.
Mhm.
This was my first client. And I was just like, wow, this is incredible. Like this feeling that I have to be able to have an impact on someone's life was something I had never felt before. So I think it was some of those early experiences, in being a personal trainer, right? Here's a quick story. So I have one of my best friends from Temple. He came over the other day and I was like, dude, you're fat as hell. You need to lose weight. And I'll help you do it, and we'll get it done together. And so we actually put a bet together. I had him write down a $5,000 check, and I said, if you lose the weight, I'll take you on a vacation, right? If you don't lose the weight, I'm taking this check and I'm sending it out to a charity. So it's his money. So if he didn't lose the weight, he was going to have to pay $5,000 to a charity, right? So we kind of won either way, but he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to lose 5 grand.
Of course.
He was pissed. He lost the weight in 2 months. He lost 60 pounds in 2 months. And he said to me, he was like, dude, the weight loss is great, but here's what's happening. I went to the comic book store the other day, and my buddy has been watching me lose this weight over the course of the last several weeks. And he said, the comic book store guy said, hey, I want to tell you, because I've been watching you and seeing what you're doing, you've inspired me to start eating better. And I've now been walking every day,
Yeah.
and I've lost 8 pounds. And he's telling me this. He's like, this is like the best feeling in the world. Like, I can't believe I actually helped another person. And it's like, to other people, like, this becomes, in the fitness industry, as you know, right? This becomes like a normal part of our life, right? Helping other people and changing their life. It becomes part of what we do. But most people don't have that opportunity. Most people that are lawyers, that are financial advisors, that are insurance people like he is, right? They're not helping people change their life all day.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize. And so he had this like unbelievable feeling of how he's helping others. So I think sometimes as fitness professionals, we get into it, but we almost forget about how valuable that is to our life.
It is, and that you never get tired of hearing those stories on there. And I think it's those intangible things on the everyday life that it's like when you know something's inherently true, like you're making progress for yourself, that feels good. But when somebody else does notice it and you realize that they've been inspired by what you're doing, that probably raised his like fuel to a whole nother level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I remember that it's when I moved back here into New York and was working out with a buddy of mine who became my personal trainer and then got me into the business. I was like on a 6 month journey of getting back into shape. And I'll never forget this woman who I saw every day in the gym, and she just randomly came up to me at one point. She's like, "Hey, I just want to tell you something. Like, I've been seeing you come in here and how focused you are and energized. Like, you're really inspiring." And it was just this offshoot thing that I'm like, people are always watching each other. Like, we can always have an opportunity to inspire, even if it's not a direct one-on-one. People are watching what you're doing. And I wasn't even in the business yet of helping people and being a personal trainer, but realizing that I was inspiring somebody else by just the work that I was doing to help
Yeah.
myself. I'll never forget that. I haven't thought about that in a while, but that memory is so clear in my mind of exactly that day in there. And those are moments that we never forget. Like that's so powerful.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. So your first job, as you said, intern went out to San Diego, which I believe was a, pretty prominent gym, which was Fitness Quest 10
yep.
out there with Todd Durkin. Todd's an amazing guy. What did you learn from that experience working with Todd and into a place like Fitness Quest 10?
Well, the cool thing is it wasn't when I got there, it was really just this very small, it was like 3,000 square feet when I got there. It was at a storefront on a second floor. The gym was like, we were, training people outside a lot on a front porch. So it wasn't like this state of the art type of place that people think it is now. And it is now, right? Because they've expanded. But like when I got there, it was just, a normal place. And then Todd started getting the first guy was LaDainian Tomlinson, who was a running back for the Chargers, who ended up like becoming one of the best football players that ever played football, right? And then obviously Drew Brees, was the next guy that came through, and that kind of put that gym on the map. The success of those two guys, and it's cool because I got was at the forefront. I got a lot of the other athletes. I trained LaDainian Thompson a couple times, but not like Todd did, but I used to get all like the linemen and the other linebackers and people like that. So I would train all those guys. But I think that the first thing I got was Todd did a really good job of being able to relate to different types of people. So there was athletes that would come 1 hour, and then there'd be a bunch of tennis ladies that would come the next hour, and then there'd be like a bunch of kids that come. And so it was kind of like this environment of a family type environment, but the ability to train multiple types of people under the same roof. And that's eventually what led me to train athletes and adults. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people pick one or the other. When I started my gym in New Jersey, we had an athlete business, but we also had an adult business, and they were almost like two separate businesses under the same roof. So I think it kind of gave me a lot of um, the ability to kind of to go back and forth between the two businesses. And that helps you expand a lot, right? When you can have kind of too many businesses under one roof, it really expands what you can do. So, Todd did a great job and he's still doing a good job. I know he's doing good things, in the industry,
Yep.
and met some really great people. Like one of my best friends in the world, I met Brett Klicka, I met at Fitness Quest. And he's still living out there in San Diego, and I see him, quite a bit. So
Not a bad spot to be right
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah. It's it's interesting. I think with a lot of coaches that come into the business, it's a romantic and really exciting idea to work with professional athletes and these like people who exceed like the normal, ability of potential on the physical side. But the general population and working with those individuals can be one of the most rewarding things in the world of helping people and being able, it's cool to have like that back and forth where you got that experience on both ends from there. But I remember, as you said about the first client that you had, my introduction into a different mindset into goals with people was I had this woman, I've talked about her on the podcast before. Her name was Helen. She was over 90 years old. And her goal, I asked what her goal was, and she said she wanted to open up the peanut butter jar
Mhm.
because she didn't have the grip strength anymore to have her breakfast in the morning. She liked to put on the news and have her peanut butter on English muffin and tea, and she felt like she couldn't do that anymore. And like 3 weeks into us training together, I was writing programs at my desk, and I hear like a clank, and it was Helen put down a peanut butter jar on my desk and said, "Watch this," and she opened it in front of me. And the look of progress and excitement in her eyes was like she just hoisted up the Lombardi trophy at the
That's
day. And I was like, holy shit, this is this is so different than what I thought. I just thought it was aesthetics and wanted to look good and, be at the highest performance. But those are the stories that really change you from
oh,
there. Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. So when you went from San Diego, then went back into New Jersey, you and your wife opened up the place from there. What was the model like from there? Was it individual, like one-on-one coaching did you do? Were you doing large groups? What was kind of the model when you first began?
Yeah, we were lucky in that most of the training we did up to that opening our first gym was one-on-one, both my wife and I. But I got the fortunate, opportunity to learn from people like Tom Plummer, Rick Mayo, Alan and Rachel Cosgrove. These are people that were kind of teaching this model at the time. And I started with a model called small group personal training. And
Mhm.
basically, it's similar to one-on-one, but you're training 4 to 6 people instead of one person. And it's just from a financial perspective, it just makes so much sense. Like,
Mhm.
all right, I can either get one person to pay me $100 or I can get 6 people to pay me 50.
Right.
I'm going to take six, pay me 50 all day long and twice on Sunday. So I was really actually happy and fortunate that that's how I started, and it's how we do it today. I mean, we still run a very similar. There's obviously been updates and additions, and subtractions and things like that from the model itself. But for right now, that's the model we still use, 17 years later. So it's really, really grateful we were able to do that. But yeah, that's the model we started with right away.
Yeah. So what was the first time that you heard about the model of small group training? Like I remember for a long time it was all one-on-one individual programming in there. And then I started to hear the inklings about getting people into small group and like getting more people into like that 4 to 6 category, even like and then large group training, which was more like class, type work. When was the first time you really heard about this model and kind of what intrigued you about it?
I would probably say it was anywhere from 2006 to 2007. I opened my gym in 2008.
Mhm.
And so probably from my going to the Perform Better conferences, which I'm a speaker at now, and Perform Better puts on really, really great seminars.
Mhm.
And so I would go to those seminars and I would hear, you would learn at these seminars of different ways to structure your business and different ways to make money and different ways. So I would say the first time I heard it was from the people I had mentioned before within that seminar series,
Mhm.
of them teaching kind of this new way, to run a business that had just a more economical sense to it, and the whole one-on-one thing is, even though it's great, I remember training kids one-on-one and like training this high school athlete, and we do a set of squats, and all of a sudden we got 5 minutes rest, and I asked him what he ate for lunch, and I asked him what he ate for breakfast, and then I asked him how his girlfriend's doing, and then we had 4 minutes and 35 seconds left to stare at each other in silence. And
Mhm.
it just got to the point where I was like, that can get draining
Yeah.
for times. And this other model where there's no downtime, it flies, right? Because you're always coaching, you're always training. So I quickly realized that, wow, this is much more, makes more sense financially, but also is just more enjoyable on the
Mhm.
trainer, as
Yeah.
we,
Did you
so
see it? Did you see it as enjoyable too for the clientele as well?
I did. And I think people that's like did the small group, they it wasn't the same energy as like a large group, right? A large group session there could be a lot of energy between the music and all the things going on.
Right. Mhm.
But I think that the one thing is that people can get that energy from each other, right? And so there was a lot of kind of cool, like, not just energy, but I would say relationships, right? So they were able to build relationships with each other. So now it's like, all right, yeah, you coming tomorrow? You're gonna be there tomorrow. And there's almost like this extra layer of accountability, not just from the staff perspective, but from the other clients that are there, that are
Yeah.
helping them along.
Yeah. I thought that's interesting because like accountability obviously is important. But I think when a one-on-one setting, the only accountability is to the trainer. And I think a lot of people they might not be able to relate as much to a trainer if they see him as like if this really fit person's coming in here, maybe younger than them or so. And it's like there is a little bit of a separation of life experiences of going on there, where if you're in a small group with maybe somebody else who's kind of in a similar like life era of you, now
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're seeing somebody who kind of looks a little more similar to you and they're working at it and you see their progress and then you feed off of each other. I can see that it could be much more exciting in that small group.
Yeah, and I'll say this, my wife is a client at my gym, right? And so she does the 6 a.m. session. So we have three young kids, right? 8, 11, and 12. And she gets up at 5 every morning, goes to the gym, works out from 6 to 7, and goes home. Here's the thing, I guarantee you, if she didn't have really good friends that she met at the gym and people that she's built relationships with and people that, are looking forward to her being there and she looking forward to them being there, there's no way she would do that every day. No way.
Mhm.
And so it adds another element of retention to the gym when you can all of a sudden those relationships start building within your community.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really powerful thing, to not just have people coming in a group. It's not just about that, but it's about the relationships that are built during those groups.
Yeah. I think it's an important point, that community aspect and support of other people. I feel like it might have got a little lost in the last few years, specifically after going through a pandemic. A lot of people got very isolated in all the work that they're doing, and it's it's an easy thing to say, well, if you progress, if you lose weight or you gain muscle and so and you feel better, then everything else is going to be good. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. If you combine that with there's a social component in there, that's, I think, even a more powerful way of holding yourself accountable because everybody can do well when they're feeling good. But it's those days when you don't feel like going or don't feel really good. That's very easy to skip on it if it's only you or only one person. But if you've got, Jen or Mark or whoever else is going to be there that you want to see, it just adds that other layer of just helping you get to that session a little bit more.
Yeah, and I really do believe we have CrossFit to thank for that. I think that they have I've never run a CrossFit gym, and obviously there's some challenges with some of those gyms, but at the end of the day, like they brought that on another level of community. So I really do believe the industry, can credit them with bringing the strong, tight-knit communities to the gyms over the course of the last several years from that.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people, it can be an easy knock on CrossFit of
Yeah,
watching the fail videos and like maybe not agree with the philosophy of some movements and stuff like that. But you can't knock the aspect of, community. Like you say, somebody says they do CrossFit and they've meet another person that does CrossFit. There's like immediate bond from that person right there. They
they've
did that. They
also
built
made
that from
what
scratch.
we do like mainstream. Like there's the CrossFit Games, and like they've made fitness more well known. It's like Biggest Loser did the same thing. Like Biggest Loser, everyone like knocks the Biggest Loser and stuff like that. But Biggest Loser made what we were doing way more relevant, right? It was like, all of a sudden they're like, oh, what is this sled that you push across the floor? And like then all of a sudden we weren't this weirdo that was doing the prowlers, like, when you're pushing. So some of these things are, at first glance, as fitness professionals, we want to knock all these things. But there's also a lot of benefits that they bring to the fitness world. It's like when people knock Richard Simmons. They're like, oh, he was just doing stupid, jazzercise or whatever. Just dude helped more people lose weight than any of
No
us
doubt.
did. It's just like saying, so it's like there's so much. I believe there's a lot of negativity in the industry, and it's just like I think that there's a positive and negative to everything. There's not one thing that's all bad, and it's a law. That's called the law of balance. Like there's good and bad of everything, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of good that CrossFit brought to the industry.
That's a great point. Before we started recording here, we were talking about like scarcity versus kind of abundance. And I got a chance this past weekend to go see a buddy of mine who built a gym, and he worked with me for a while when he was first coming up, and got a chance to see him with 25 plus of his members doing this challenge. And they were, passing challenges, they were getting t-shirts, everybody was high-fiving each other. It was so freaking awesome. And it's like, just to see somebody else succeeding in there, it's like that's just a net positive for everybody in the industry. And I remember Dr. Lisa Lewis came on the podcast, and she brought this concept of leverage any motivation. And it's like, it doesn't matter if somebody says they want to lose weight or they want to get in shape for a wedding or whatever it is. It's like, it's not your job to say, well, you need to look at the long game. You need to do things for longevity. It's like, no, use why they came to you and maximize that as much as possible at the time. So if somebody saw a Biggest Loser episode or watched a Richard Simmons thing and it gave them some motivation to get started, like celebrate that. Like that's an opportunity for you to help that person, and it's only going to build you up. So Richard Simmons helped all of us in this industry,
Yeah,
from osmosis.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So with small group, I mean, small group, it's, you've written a lot about it, and you've been, more of a pioneer of building this up into work. And I've seen a lot of people that have tried to move from individual work or group into small group, but didn't really get to that level. So what are the things that you see that some people misrepresent or like get wrong when trying to get into small group training?
So I think the first mistake I see people is they just slap it on their price sheet as an additional option, meaning they do large group or they do one-on-one and they're like, all right, we're going to add this. And I don't think it works as an add-on. I really don't. I think that it's kind of like the steak restaurant, like all of a sudden trying to be like, all right, baked potatoes are our number one thing.
Mm,
And it's just like get the baked potato, and they put it on the menu, and they expect people just to buy the baked potato and then not buy the steak.
but the stakes right there.
They're focused, right? And the steak's the thing, and they're a steakhouse, and like, it's like, so I think that if it works, small group becomes the steak. That's when I see it works. When people now this isn't easy. What I'm about to say is not easy to do and does take time. But at the end of the day, I think the businesses that succeed with small group, that is the main part of their business. That
Mhm.
is the main thing they do. And I think it's kind of like, when you do, it's like to stay on a restaurant example, it's like a restaurant that serves pizza, Chinese food, and, Hawaiian food. It's just like you can't be good at all three of those things.
Right.
And so I think what people need to do is they need to pick their bread and butter. And like, what form of training are that? Are they a really good large group gym? And there's some people that are really large group gyms and they come to me and they want to come to small group and they show me their numbers and they show me their business. And I'm like, why? Why do you want what? This is a good business. Like, don't change just because I wrote a book on small group and you think it's better. I think that there are some people that, yes, they should move to small group, but I didn't write this book to be like, everyone needs to go to small group because it's the best. It's like, it's a really effective model that you can make a lot of money with. But there's some people that are doing really, really well. So I think before people commit and move and change to everything, don't just do it because other people are doing it. Do it because maybe you want to make more money in your business, or maybe you want to shift to a different model. What you're doing is not working. That's great. Do it. But take a look in the mirror and really say, like, is this the right move for me? Is this something we should do? Or is this just me trying to like find the next new flavor of the week and go do that?
Right.
So I think when the people need to do it one periodically over time. I think like all of a sudden, if you've done one-on-one for 20 years and tomorrow they come in and you don't have any more one-on-one and you do only small group, that's going to be a tough shift and a tough move.
Mhm.
And so what I think you do is you just do it in sections. And if you do either one-on-one or large group, you do, a pilot of the program for a month.
Right.
Say you grab, hey, we're starting this new program. It's going to be called small group personal training, where you're going to get lots of individual attention. And we'd like you to try it out for the first month for free and let us know how you like it. Like, that's what we see. And then people get a bunch of people and they try, like, yeah, I like this. This is better. And if they're doing one-on-one, you can say, yeah, it's better. And you're going to get more training and you're going to pay less money every month.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is great. This is even better. But the reality is not everyone's going to do it.
Mhm.
Right? You might never get all of your one-on-one clients to go to small group. And that's fine too. But what you want to work towards is getting as many people as possible to do that one program. So now this can become your stake. And this can become the main thing that you actually do. That's what I see is the biggest issue, is that people just try to add it because they think they should add it, or they heard they should add it, and then it fails. I think it works when you make it the main thing that you do.
Yeah. Why do you think that is with people? Like you have a successful model and stuff, and then you're just searching out for other things because you think, is it FOMO? Is it like, do you feel like, is it just like that itch that comes? Do you think that like I need to do something different because like that just energy of like the beginning of starting something is gone now? Like, what do you think that is?
I think we all probably have a little bit of that as entrepreneurs, like a
Yeah.
little bit of that, entrepreneurial ADD. We're like, oh, like, look at this. Oh, this is really cool. And, but it's a dangerous game to play with your business model, right? It's one thing to take on a new marketing strategy or take on a new thing, but to totally shift around your entire business model, which is kind of what this really is, that's a very dangerous thing to play with. So you do got to make sure. But I think the answer to your question is we all suffer from this organizational ADD thing that we're going after, and we want to improve our businesses. And some of it comes from a good place, right? Some of it comes from the desire to get better and the desire to improve. But some of it comes to maybe being bored, or maybe the other thing it could come from is not knowing your numbers well enough.
Hmm.
Right. It's just that's another thing is too. And that's one of the things we teach so much is understanding your financials. And like, if someone doesn't know, like, on average, how much money they make per hour from their session, and they have large group, and they might have 20 people in a large group session and charge $10. Well, they're making $200 an hour. And then they say they want to do small group, and they're going to charge $30 and have 4 people in a group. Well, that's less money
Mhm.
than you made it in your
Right.
large. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, at some point you got to look at the numbers and look at the data. Now, the argument is, all right, you can do one large group at a time and you could do 4 small groups at one time.
Mhm.
Right. So technically you can have that argument too. But I think the answer to your question is twofold. The organizational ADD of wanting to try new things and thinking the grass is always greener. But the other side of it is probably not having clarity on the financials, probably not having clarity on the data of their business, and then making decisions based on what their buddy told them is working for them,
Mhm.
and not, hey, this has been my wheelhouse the whole time, and maybe the only thing they really need to do is raise their prices
Right.
to make.
How often do you see that with gym owners and coaches coming in to work with you who are actually unclear about exactly what you're doing? Is that a majority percentage?
I can't give you a percentage,
Yeah,
but it is high.
it's high. Yeah.
Yeah, the majority of, yeah, and I assume you're asking about the financials, but the majority of people that come into my group that that join our mastermind,
Mhm.
they do not have a grasp of the money. They do not have a grasp of, they're not looking at their profit and loss statements. The biggest thing they're not doing also is looking at what I call a scoreboard, which is the critical drivers, things like leads and trial memberships and new contracts and lost clients, and they're not looking at that on a regular basis. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like a pilot flying a plane without any of the data that's telling him where he's at,
Mhm.
right? You're not going to know what the hell is going on in your business if you're not looking at these numbers on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's twofold. It's like not knowing the data from a critical driver standpoint, and not knowing the data and not knowing how to read a profit and loss statement.
Yeah.
Like, look at it and their accountant says it to them and they're like, all right, yeah, what do I do with this thing?
Everybody know. Yeah, it's a P&L. Yeah. Okay. It's like, what the heck does this actually mean?
But the key is developing the skills. Like, that's
Mhm.
the thing that stands in the way of becoming better at business is just skill development. It's nothing else.
Yeah.
And then to understand and learn the skill of being able to read that and looking at the key numbers that it's telling you and saying, what changes do we need to make this better, or not, right? Or is everything going well? And what is our goal for profit? And what is our goal for payroll relative to revenue and things like that? So, um, if you're going to be successful in business, you got to be well versed on that. And here's the thing, I am like a stickler about this because I had one of the most embarrassing things ever happen to me. I was doing a full day consulting day with a marketing consultant who happened to be a client of mine at my gym. And I brought her in for the day, and she started asking me all these questions about numbers. And she's like, what's your cost per lead? What's the lifetime value of a customer? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And she looked at me and she was like, well, we're done here. You don't know your numbers, so I can't help you.
Yeah.
And she left. And I was like, that was so freaking embarrassing that this woman like wouldn't even stay the day with me. And she's like, I can't help you. You don't know your numbers. And like the words still like burn a hole in my heart. But that kicked me in gear. I was like, I'm going to know these things.
Yeah.
I'm going to know these things. So I learned this from a deficit. Like, I learned this, like not knowing it
Yeah.
myself, but I
Yeah.
became very well versed
Yeah.
in it.
If you go back to that time, Vince, and not having it, not knowing this information, was it something that if you look back in retrospect, didn't think it was important or was nervous about knowing these numbers? Because it's like sometimes it's easier to stay in the fog and not be clear on it and just go about the day.
I just didn't know. I just
Yeah.
didn't know it was supposed to be. Like, there's no one that told me that I need to do that. Like,
Yeah.
and I guess whatever books I read, because most of the books at that point I'm reading were training books,
Right.
right? Getting certifications and stuff. So at that point, I wasn't reading a ton of business stuff. But even the business stuff I did read, even if it was about like leadership or marketing or stuff like that, it's probably not going to shine the light on how to read your financials and what critical drivers, right? I probably just didn't get to that level of education, about my business. So I think part of it, the big thing was just not knowing that I was supposed to be doing that. It's almost like this whole ignorance
Sure.
thing. And you don't understand, like, so many people, like, we had our mastermind this weekend and we have 10 new members that joined the group after the mastermind, right? I don't think one of them kept a scoreboard. And these are people that have been in business for a long time. And part of it is just like no one probably ever told them that they should do this.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just need to be told, you just need to be told.
No doubt, yeah. And
Just
I think it's such a lesson in life that you're talking about too, Vince, because, you're talking about it in a business context, but how many people as coaches you see come in and you ask them what their goal is and you ask them a couple questions just to go a little bit deeper under a layer and they have no idea. Like they really don't know why they want to do these things and didn't know they should know these things. And it's like, yeah, like you should know why this goal is important to you. If you want to lose weight, like what's that going to do? And when people get that deer in the headlight, it's kind of embarrassing. Like, you need to empathize at that point. But I think we all do it in some part of our life of doing it. Like you might know exactly your macros and exactly the weight that you put on the bar last week in there. You know that shit, but yet you have no idea, your cost per lead or like on this side of it. Like I think we all have those things and you need to address them if you really want to get to that next level.
Yeah, and it's like you have no idea if you're doing it wrong. So like a gym owner that knows fitness really well can walk to a regular gym, like at Lifetime Fitness or something, and see someone doing something so stupid, right? Like and them doing it so confidently, like and the gym owner knowing that that's like so wrong and so bad for them, and just like, but they have no idea. But that's a lot of times what we look like as business owners. Like we look like that person doing the lat pull downs behind their neck
Right.
and not even realizing that that's probably not really good for them or not really good, but they're doing it and they're going at it and they're like, oh, this is it. Right. I think it's the same thing kind of happens on the business side. We just don't know. And that's why I think it's so important to get around, good quality peers and mentors and people that can share, best practices and things that you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Like when we get a new person going on, there's like a handful of things. I was like, all right, these are like the basics. This is like your survival kit in business. Like you got to be doing these things. If you're not doing these things, you know, you're not going to be nearly as successful as you could be. So yeah, I think it's sometimes just the ignorant side of it, not knowing.
Yeah, it is. And it's tough. I mean, you kind of have to, sometimes you need to have those, comeuppance and, get it square in the face for somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about, looks
Yes.
you right in the eye and being like, what do you want me to do? And it's like, I've had that before in my life and it is a tough day in there. Like you're going to sit by yourself for a while and being like, what the fuck is going on in my head? I need to get my shit together. But that's
Yep.
why I think, it's such a valuable and important thing, as you said, of getting around people that have done what you want to do in a coaching realm, whether that be in fitness or business or relationships or so. Like you can read all the stuff that, is out there on it, but the fastest way to get to where you want to go is talk to somebody who has been where you are and knows the path of where you need to get to.
I totally agree with that. That is like it mind boggles me of why people try to reinvent the wheel on their own. So like I started a mastermind consulting business back in 2018. I had no idea how to do it. And I hired a guy that was doing it. And he just was like 5 years ahead of me. And he was having success. And I was just, all right, just tell me how to structure this thing. Tell me what to do. I had no idea. Instead of trying to figure it out for myself, I accelerated so much faster. Um, there's guys in my mastermind that have gotten to success way faster than I ever did, right? Because I just told them what to do.
Mhm.
Right? And I didn't have anyone telling me what to do. So they did it and they did it 10 times faster than I ever could have. I think that's the most underrated success principle. It's just like find someone that has achieved the success that you want to achieve and then pay them money to tell you what they did
Yeah.
and how they're doing it. Like it's just so simple. It's like it's not really, but it makes so much sense because what you're doing is you're buying speed, right? Most people probably have the talent to get to where they want to go, but it just the difference is how fast, how long is it going to take?
100.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, like when you find people that have already done it, you know, that you're going to get there 10 times faster.
Yeah. Shane Farmer taught me this from Dark Horse Rowing. He built up Dark Horse Rowing Company. And he said he started this thing where when he was figuring out what he wanted to do, he just called everybody in different professions that he knew in his friends, family, friends, and just said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And just asked them about what they were doing and kept doing that with everybody that he was working with. If somebody had an expertise in something, even if he didn't know, like, if it would help him or all, he was like, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. And it was just learning about, because you can learn something from somebody else so much faster than you can. And I think in the personal development space, we get so deep into reading, a book a week and getting all this, work done and trying to absorb so much knowledge. But you can get to somebody who has wisdom along with that knowledge. Like they're going to give you that blueprint way faster than any book that you're going to read or podcast that you're going to listen to. So yeah, shout out, like go find the person that has done what you want to do and just chat with them for 20 minutes. You're probably going to get more from that and then 4 hours of reading a book.
I love I love sometimes the videos on Instagram of the guy that's like 75 years old and they're asking him about parenting and raising his kids. Like that's who you likely want to listen to.
Oh, 100.
Yeah, it's just like he's done it, been there, done it. He's seen it go all come through, and so I
Yeah.
listen up when I see that.
Yeah, the good times, the bad, the weird, the curveballs. He knows everything about it from probably different generations.
Yeah.
So going through your time in the business work that you've done, and specifically with small group training, what are some of the biggest things that you've changed over the course of how you operate in coaching and in business? Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of changes that you've made from the time you opened to now, but what are some of the longest levers of big changes or shifts that maybe you made from learning more and adjusting and pivoting?
The biggest shift that I made was the focus on marketing and the emphasis on how important that really is. And the reality is you you are guaranteed to lose clients, right? You're guaranteed. There's no gym in the world that's ever kept every one of their clients. So it's a guarantee. You're not guaranteed to get new ones,
Mhm.
right? So I realized that and just like, okay, there's a certain, and the other thing with looking at it too, when I started tracking attrition, it's like if you have a 3% attrition rate and you have 100 members, you lose 36 clients a year.
Mm.
That's a lot of clients.
Yeah,
Like if you really think about it, and 3% is a good
that's a
rate.
good, yeah, that's good.
So
It's
it's
a
a
good rate.
good
Yeah.
rate. That's a high rate. Like I told my cousin this he's in another industry and they lose like almost, works in very, very, very large contracts. So they lose very little. Right. And I told him, so you lose 36 clients a year? And like, you're like, yeah. And he was like baffled by that. But in our world, that's a really good thing. Right.
Mhm.
So I think coming to the realization that, wow, when you look at numbers, and this is the benefit of numbers, you start to see things like this. Whereas when I first started, I didn't realize we were losing 36 clients a year. It's just like, oh my God, like that's a lot. And it made me shine the light on that this is what needs to happen to grow your business. Someone needs to raise their hand and say, I'm interested. Then there needs to be a sales conversation about if you're going to buy a membership or not. Then they need to start training and then they need to be kept hopefully as long as possible as a client. That's the whole process, right? Um, but nothing happens until someone raises their hand and says, I'm interested. It
Mhm.
doesn't skip to that second step. Like someone has to raise their hand. And so I looked at marketing as kind of the tip of the spear, as the thing that you have to be good at and you have to keep going at. And it also looked at it as the thing that people were the worst at. If you were to ask most gym owners, hey, what are you the worst at? Marketing, sales, or retention and keeping your clients? What are they going to say? Majority of the time, it's marketing.
Mhm.
And so I realized that, and I looked at that for my own business, and says like I learned this stuff for my own business. But I also realized like as I'm learning this stuff, I'm now putting myself in a position to teach others how to do it better. And that became my first book, The Ultimate Guide, to marketing your gym. So my big shift has been the education of marketing and learning about that, teaching that to others and really realizing that, this is a missing link in the education of most business owners. And I kind of took it upon myself to teach as many people I could.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I think because most trainers and coaches we're bleeding hearts in many ways, where you want to focus on all the people that you have and retain as many as possible. And even if you're not great at it, you're probably better at it than the other things that you do. Um, so what was the key things that you learned about marketing that really changed and really helped you develop and grow to the next level?
So my mentor in marketing is a guy named Dan Kennedy, who is the godfather of marketing. He's, all these kind of guys that you see teaching marketing now, they're all disciples of Kennedy, all of them. And so he has this thing that he teaches that I adopted, obviously, and it's the triad of marketing. And you basically look at it, if you think, picture a triangle, and there's target market, there's marketing message, and then there's the media that you use to get the message out there. And that's probably the most powerful foundational principle in marketing. I think we want to skip to what do we need to do on TikTok and what do we need to do on Instagram? And we skip to all the tactical things and we fail to look at the strategic side of marketing, which is, do you actually know the customer? Do you actually know the type of person that's coming to your gym? Is your messaging geared towards that person, right? Is your messaging built towards getting that person to say, this is for me, getting them to raise their hand and say, yes, you were talking to me. This is what I want. And then the media side of it is, and the biggest mistake people make is to rely on one media. The thing people need to do is realize there are multiple ways to get new clients and they need multiple ways to get new clients. So I think that strategic viewpoint of very, very clear target market, very, very clear differentiators of what is your message relative to that market. And then how do you get that message out there through multiple channels and multiple strategies? That's the most basic foundational approach to marketing that I learned back in the day. And I don't believe that's ever going to change. Like, I don't think that one day, like, they're going to be like, oh, target market doesn't matter very much. Or,
Right.
it's just like, it's always going to be there. And so, one of the things I always like to teach is principles, things that aren't going to change.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of people out there teaching tactical stuff.
Right.
And, yeah, it's a little sexier and get, 474 leads in 3 days. And, some of that stuff works well, until it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And they're left with, relying on someone else to do the work for them, when my job is to teach these gym owners these foundational principles of marketing, so they can help make decisions, for themselves.
Yeah. I remember one of the more interesting mistakes over my time is when me and the former team, we started this program and that was guaranteed to generate all these leads and stuff like that. And it got a shit ton of leads, to us. And as we were going through them, realized there's not one of these that is our target audience. So, but we were super excited. We're getting all these leads and calls set up like over this time and everything was just flowing. It's like, oh my God, like those numbers can get really exciting. But then you actually realize that this is not the people that you work with. It's not good conversations. It's not flowing. So I would assume that in part of that triangle, the one that you really need to get in is who do you actually serve? Like, who are the people that you want to work with? Who is that target market?
Absolutely. Yeah. And with that too, the message and, I forget, which marketing guru said this, but the job of your marketing is to enter the conversation already going on in the prospect's mind. Right. And so what you need to do is you need to understand what are the things that you need to say that when they can read that email, when they can watch that video, for that customer and that mom or that dad or that kid or whatever, whoever is receiving that message, for them to read that and be like, yes, this person is talking directly
Right.
to me and they understand and know what I'm going through and they have something for me. They have something that can help me. That's like the liquid gold in marketing, is to be
Mhm.
able to have that exchange happen. They'd be able to have that conversation. They're going on in their mind. The marketer understands that conversation, what's going on in their mind, and then puts that conversation, whether that's a testimonial, whether that's a success story, whether that's an offer, doesn't matter what it is. They go on and do it.
Yeah. What's cool about that too is like that like in the first minute of connecting someone because the tone is like they already know you. Like it's like I love that line you just said. It's like an ongoing conversation that's already been happening and now it's just in real time.
Yep. Yep. And I think that's like the thing is like empathy. I asked someone what made Kennedy so great. This was the guy I asked this question was like a really close disciple of Kennedy. And what makes Kennedy so great? And he said empathy, right? And people mistake empathy and sympathy, right? Sympathy is having pity on someone, right?
Right. Yeah, I
Whereas,
feel for you. Mhm.
right, is empathy is being able to see things through their eyes, right? And so the real thing that Kennedy has is he can write a message to somebody and he knows what's going on in their minds so deeply that it just hits them right in the teeth. And that's what empathy is. So people need to practice empathy. And actually, I write about this, and I don't know if you picked it up in the book, but there was a whole
I
chapter
did actually wrote it down right here, so I'm
empathy,
glad you brought it up.
empathy versus sympathy, right? And it's a foundational piece in marketing to understand that. And that's exactly what I'm talking about with entering the prospects conversation.
Yeah. Empathy is an interesting one, right? Because it's I think it's one of those things that often gets misconstrued of what it is. It's not just, oh, I feel you or I see you through the eyes. It's actually knowing what they're going through and like having that conversation and flowing through. And it's building a trust within you that you do care about this person
Yes.
and that you're building because you said like, a coaching and working with an individual and a client, it's a mutual partnership. Like there's an agreement on both sides of that. Like, I've had the clients who they just want like a dictator, like just tell me what to do and stuff. And that works for a short period of time. But if you don't build that collective, agreement together and there's not that trust in there, you might retain them for a short period of time, but eventually that's going to go really quickly. And then your attrition's going to, go rapidly through. But people stay because of the relationship. They don't stay because of the initial thing that they came in and spoke to you with first. I believe you brought that up in the book too. Like, the reason people stay is very different than the reason why they first come in the door.
Yes. Yes. So we had to beef on this point a little bit. We had a thing we did where we gave away 6 weeks of free training. This was back in like 2016. And we ended up picking this woman as the winner, and her name is Kathy. And we started doing like videos because we were gonna, take some of the things that we were doing with her and post them on social and things like that. And she's this very New Jersey woman. She had a lot of weight to lose, and she was very funny. And so we're filming this video, and I'm coaching her through the squat. And I'm like, all right, this is Kathy. She's gonna sit back and push her knees out. And she's like, this is so boring. No one's gonna watch this video. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you do it. She's like, you get your ass down there and I'll tell you what to do. And so she starts taking over the video and she's like, yeah, this is Vince Gabriel. He's going to squeeze his ass on the side plank. And like,
My God.
dude, I'm telling you, we posted that video and 474 comments later, it went viral in our community. And we ended up posting a video together every week for over a year,
It's the best.
every Monday. But I'm telling you, like, they started coming to us in droves and calling us and saying, I want the program like Kathy. I want what Kathy's doing. I want what Kathy's doing. Because one, she was getting results, but two, they saw her as like a non-threatening person.
Yeah.
And they basically said, all right, if she can do it, then I can do it too. So sometimes we think as trainers that the best thing we can do is put a picture of ourselves in really good shape, cross our arms, and puff out our biceps and think that that's going to bring a lot of people that are already scared to come into a gym and do it. Whereas you put one of your clients up there that is just like them, it's so much more powerful.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I'm hoping people are starting to get this more. I do think it's gotten better and improved. I'm seeing less and less of the garbage of, you putting yourself on the cover of your website, with your shirt off and things like that. And using more of the success stories that you have and letting that drive the narrative of your business because it's going to be so much more effective at your marketing.
Yeah. And I gotta say, the part on Kathy in the book was my favorite part because there's a picture of her with this huge smile with you. I was like, I could see I know exactly the tone of that woman's voice right there. That
Yeah.
was the most beautiful New Jersey tri-state area, like, look right there. So that was
Yeah.
beautiful. So
She's
um
amazing. And we're
well,
still, so the funny thing is we still talk all the time. She lost 80 pounds and she's kept it off for over a decade. So it's still so much strong. She can't go to the grocery store without someone asking her what they should have for breakfast. Like she
that's great.
became like a celebrity in our community from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from just being her. Yeah,
Yeah.
no fake shit. That's awesome. Well, Vince, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time. I love this conversation and really love the work that you're doing. So appreciate your time today.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. If people could, if want to check out more of the work that you do, you've got this book out, The Ultimate Guide to Small Group Personal Training in here. What's the best place that they can go and check it out?
They can get a free copy if they just go to smallgrouppersonaltraining.com. They can go get a free copy of the book, and probably I'll send you the link so you can put a link in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
But smallgrouppersonaltraining.com is a free copy of the book.
Awesome. Brother, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Listeners, thank you so much for following. Go check out Vince, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, peace.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to the Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait. Go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.